Hey guys, Julian here, and today I am going to be making the much requested Blawan Objekt style techno track from scratch. We're going to be going from this blank project file. You can see I've got some samples prepared all the way through to a finished mastered little track. If you want to hear the finished track, the timestamp is at the top of the description now. I'll give you a moment to do that. And yeah, so, as usual, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets. Everything that I'm about to create from this video and that you just heard is available at the top of the description right now. And if you want to check it out on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's get going. So, the first thing I'm going to start with here is we're going to make a kick. I have this kick sample here. Here, just sort of like a very nice, punchy 909 style kick. We're at 138 BPM, a little bit faster. With this style, I find that to work really well, though, because what's happening is you have this, really atmospheric, sort of dark and, kind of, smooth techno like that, and then you put it at this faster speed, and it gets, this very hectic and sort of busy feeling to it that I think sounds really good, especially on the dance floor. So, 138 is really good for this style, but cool. So, we get quarter notes on the kick. And I'm going to turn the kick down a little bit. And the first thing that we're going to do here on this is I'm going to give it the rumble. So we're going to put an audio effect rack on here. And what we're going to do is we are going to create two chains. I'm going to name one the punch chain and one the rumble chain. And then what we're going to do here is on the punch chain, we'll keep it dry. On the rumble chain, we're going to get a reverb and then an amp. And then a low pass filter. So the way the rumble and techno works, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you probably already know, is basically use a reverb or a delay. Typically with this style, I think reverb works better because it's a little bit more atmospheric and you don't need that super, hard hitting kind of punch to it. But yeah, you put the reverb or delay into some distortion and you get that deep, fat low end coming out of it. And then you low pass it so you're just getting the rumble. So again, we're going to take the reverb, dry wet all the way up, decay time about there. Usually I'll play with the size a little bit too because you can hear it makes it a bit more dense and full sounding. Then we put that into the amp, or you could use really any distortion, but I like amp because as you can hear, it's bringing out a lot of low end on the sound. And we can even try these other amp modes. Let's do that one. So you can hear obviously, very messy, but that rumbling low end is there. And another thing here is the amp converts this to mono. So if you're using a different distortion, say if we were doing this with a saturator or something like that, if I just wanted to, do that, you notice it's still stereo. So you have to convert it to mono because you never want your low end to be stereo in a track. It just doesn't work that well. It's always going to be more powerful if it's mono. Stereo is more for sounds that you want to be kind of in the high end and stuff like that. But yeah, so then we've got the amp. And then the last thing here is we just take the low pass filter. And there we go. We get just the rumble. Now, I usually like to do a little bit more in the form of two things. One, I'll usually sidechain this to the punch. Because if you listen right now, the rumble kind of overtakes the punch. This rumble, you have to keep in mind, you're making kind of a messy sound here. This isn't a very orthodox sound. So you have to do things to kind of keep it under control in the mix. So sidechaining it is definitely going to help with that. And we can just take kick, and then you select pre-effects here. So it's not going through any of this before it's being sidechained. And now, we can actually hear the rumble, and we can actually hear the punch. And the other thing that I'll usually do is just get a bit of EQ, because typically, if you guys watch my other videos where I have a bass line or something like that, typically when I have a bass line, I will cut at 100 hertz, because that typically tends to be where the kick is punching through. So if you cut that, it makes a little bit of room for the kick. So you just do that, and then I usually boost the low end a little as well. Cool, and then after that, I'll put those through a bit of drum bus. Just make it really hit hard like this. And this is where we can really start to blend these two together as well. Because what's happening is essentially this drum bus is gluing these together. Like you can hear that happening. So to try and level these out without this on here is a little bit different, but once you have it on there, you can really hear how they're working together. And I'm also putting an EQ8 on there just to do a little bit of like a low end boost. Try a little bit of muddy stuff. Cool, so now we have a nice punchy kick that works really well. Cool, so now we have really the foundation of the track. You know, whenever I'm making techno, I always start with a kick. Like, I can't say like there's really just no reason to start with anything else because now we have the foundation and we have really like the bottom line of our track set up to listen to. Another thing is like, you gotta keep in mind in techno, the rumble kick is taking up like 50% of the frequency spectrum because it's so big in the low end and it's the only low end element. And then you have the actual like kick on top of that, which is really like that main like 100 to 200 hertz to 300 hertz element. So it's really taking up a lot of space. So to start with this is good because you're like kind of fleshing it out before the track is already there. And yeah, it can come together a lot quicker this way. From here, I'm going to make some background atmosphere noise. What we're going to do is I'm actually going to get operator. And we're going to just make a long note here. And then I'm going to switch on some white noise here. Like that. And then we're going to turn off the filter for now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the LFO on here. And we're going to put that on the volume of the whole synth. So we just turn those off. Destination B goes to volume. And then we'll turn the amount up. And so now you hear it's just kind of like sort of crescendoing and going down and getting bigger and going down. And this is what we want. We want this sound to really feel like it's alive and breathing like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to also turn off this retrigger here because that basically makes it so every time you hit play, when you have the retrigger on, it starts in the same place. If you don't have it on, it's constantly moving. And so this is really honestly just because, like, when we duplicate over this 8-bar thing, you don't want it to restart every time. This way, I could duplicate it, and it'll be continuously changing. But cool, and then I'm also going to turn on the filter. We're going to just use a high pass. Let's actually use a band pass. Cool. And then on this, I'm going to put an auto pan. And then this is going to be doing even more movement. What we're going to do is we're going to switch this to this. And I'm going to put it on sine wave. This is probably how yours is when you drop it in. I have mine set up a little bit differently. But then what we can do is just turn this rate up. Let's actually switch it to that mode. And now you can hear the texture that's adding. So here's without this. And then with it. So you can hear like we have sort of like the background movement, which is, and then this one, which is like over top of that. And so you get this very alive sound this way. It's all about having like multiple movements and stuff like that happening. Cool, and then we can let's put like a little bit of reverb on this. And some saturation. And we'll also cut out some low end after the chain. And now you can hear we have that background texture to the track. And I'll put an LFO even on this bandpass filter. So these kind of sounds are just all about movement. You know, you just need to like make sure that it's moving on its own and kind of coming to life in that way. Cool, so now I'm going to start making some synths. I'm going to get another operator, and we're going to do something kind of like this. I'm going to make the sound first. I'm going to switch this to white noise, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use a bandpass filter, and I'm going to turn the resonance up. So we get like this tone. Turn that down too. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this and click play by key. So what this does is what's called key tracking. Now if we play a low note, it plays a low note. If we play a high note, it plays a high note. So it's a cool way to make a synth because you can hear like, we have this tone coming out of here now. Just from using the bandpass filter with the high resonance, and we can like play it across the keyboard. So I'm going to turn on the sound shaper. And let's also like shorten the sound a little. And we can put a little bit of an envelope on the filter too, so it's like plucking. And we'll get some saturation on here. The cool thing with this is you can hear it, like it never sounds exactly the same twice. So you kind of get this very like lively and interesting sound as a result of that. Cool, alright, let's put in some notes on this. I'm gonna just make something kind of like rhythmic and sort of repeating. Yeah, that sounds cool. And then we'll do like that again. Nice. Now I'm gonna put a bit of chorus on this. And let's also put some echo on it too, like before the reverb. That sounds really cool. So now we have this like kind of interesting rhythmic thing happening because we have what's called a polyrhythm. If you listen to everything else, which really is just the kick right now, but you hear it's like dun 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 dun. It's like every bar it restarts, but then you have this thing, which is actually restarting like here because you can see, yeah, or really it's restarting here because it's like this length just repeated over and over and over again. And what happens is you get really cool rhythm because of that. Because you have multiple rhythms at once, aka a polyrhythm. And then we put the echo on top of that. It's just like moving. And it's at once rhythmic and percussive as well, which I think is very important with this style. Nice. Now after this, I'm gonna make some more sort of background synths. Let's use operator for this first one. I'm gonna make like a FM kind of boom sound. Alright, let's work with that. Let's put some drum bus on it to make it a bit bigger. Play with that filter a bit. And then I'm going to give it like a very filtered echo. Nice. And then this is just gonna kind of come in every now and then. Nice. Now let's also do a little bit of reverb on that. And some erosion. If you play with erosion kind of in the lower registers with the frequency control, you can get like some more interesting sounds. Because up here it just sounds like a standard bit crush. But if you bring it down, you start to just get all these like different crunchy sounds. And let's automate that amount too a little bit. Like we can just have it maybe there, and then there, and there. And then there, just so it's like a little bit different every time. Alright, there we are. Cool, so now I'm gonna start putting in some of these hi-hats that I have. Which I think I'm going to... Let's put this one on the upbeats here. It's like a standard sort of 909 style hi-hat, you know, very fat and hard hitting. With this style, I find they don't really use open hi-hats so much. Like, it's not like that type of techno. It's more like this little just... like a little vibe like this. I'm gonna put that in a group because we're gonna do more percussion, and we'll name this the percussion group. Put some saturation on there. Make it hit a little bit more. Nice. And then let's get another operator on here, and I'm gonna make another hi-hat. So I like using operator to make, and really like any kind of synthesis to make the hi-hats in the style, because I think that's what they're doing a lot. Like when I was listening to Blawan and Object's tracks to like get ready for this video, they have hi-hats where like they're changing a lot in the track and they sound very much like white noise. So those are the two things that I would say kind of define like self-made hi-hats, because what you can do is like we just make something with white noise here, just put a little bit of white noise into a bandpass filter. We can change this a lot. We can automate like this. We can automate this. You know, we can have that moving. It's like there's a lot that can be done with this. And I think that this is how they do a lot of these hi-hats, because it really allows you to make something that's like alive. Like we can even just do like a little automation to the decay. Just really subtle like this. Nice one. So I have some percussions here. Which I think we're gonna play with. Like we can maybe get this one. feels very Blawan-esque to me. Nice. Let's cut out some lowering on that too, because it has a bit of that like. And we'll do like a little bit of a. Alright, cool. Sounding pretty good. So I think we just need a few little like last elements to sort of tie this whole thing together before we go about like actually arranging the track. Not bad for like 20 minutes, but cool. So first thing that I'm going to do here for this sort of like extra kind of background elements is we're going to make a percussion loop using a send. So this is a technique I've been using a lot. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a return track here, and I'm going to send the kick through it, maybe like that much. And I'm going to send the percussion to it like that much. And we'll name this percussion loop. And then what we can do is if we put like some delay on here, like I usually start with a bit of echo. And we filter it. You can kind of create this like little background thing, as you can hear. And then we'll high pass it a bit. And then where it gets interesting is you can start combining like multiple things to do this. Like maybe we could get another delay after this. That would be doing like 16th notes. But let's do it before actually. And we can just play around with like different settings like this. And then we can do kind of creative stuff on top of that. Like maybe. And we can, maybe instead, let's only send certain percussion through there, like the hi-hat on the upbeat. And yeah, now we're getting all this cool percussion happening, like in the background. So here's without the send. And then with it. You can hear what this does and how it really brings the track to life. I think one of the main defining things with this style of techno is it feels very alive and it feels very much like it's breathing and kind of like I said, it's got a life of its own. And so when you have something like this happening, and you're hearing the percussion sounds that you already know are in the track, but they're kind of like, you know, doing something else in the background, it really adds a lot of that, like, life to it. And then you combine that with elements like this, or even like, you know how we have this constantly automating? take a really simple track that would be boring and make it really interesting and really exciting and really come to life. Now, we're going to turn everything down because it's starting to get a bit loud. Nice. And then the other thing that I'm going to do to kind of bring this to life is I'm going to make one more sort of like stabby, just here and there sound. So let's do another thing with FM. You know, I really like using FM synthesis with this style because it's just so like straightforward to making these cool like warped sounds. You know, you're not just like trying to like coax a square wave or a saw wave into sounding cool. It already sounds cool, and then you're just trying to like, you know, sort of harness that into a really cool creative sound. Let's make like a weird sort of pluck with this one. There we go. Just a little call and response. Something I've been learning recently about techno is like, I think what really makes simple tracks like this work is call and response, because the issue with something being simple, like for us to just make a track that was just the kick and say like this hi-hat. The reason why you can't do this is because it doesn't really have any depth to it. You're just hearing the kick and the hi-hat, and that's all it is. But if you have something that's really simple like that, and it's just, you know, just moving straight through like that, it's not really going to be that interesting, and it's going to get boring. But if you have something really simple, and then you have like call and response happening between two elements where you can really hear them sort of playing off of each other, I just think it makes the overall track a lot more exciting, and I think that's what makes the difference. Like, you know, when you hear people say like, oh, well, how do they do it? Why is their track so simple, and my track is so simple, and it doesn't work? This is why, is because there's little stuff like this happening to give it nuance and detail. And you just have to try to think of it like that, you know? This is the interesting thing about having this percussion send too, is you can send things through it that aren't necessarily percussion. Cool, I'm gonna put some chorus on this. We're gonna turn the feedback up a bunch. And then I think I'm also going to add a sort of droning chord. Again, we'll use operator for this. Yeah, I like FM synthesis so much with the style. I mean, a lot of times when I'm making these types of tracks, I will use like analog or something like that, or, you know, a non-FM synth. But I think in terms of creating like exciting sounds for you guys on this video, definitely like FM is a really great way to go. And then let's just do G and D. And then we'll do another G up here. And then we'll just make like a droning sort of. Give it a little bit of movement with the LFO. Then let's cut out some low end. We'll put this through reverb and delay as well. I think I'm going to get rid of that fifth. And then I'm going to put an auto pan on that. So we just have it on quarter notes, and then it's on the saw wave inverted, so it's going up. And then I have the phase all the way down. So this is just going to simulate side chaining it to the kick. Let's try just making it one note, actually. This is the process. You start with something complex, and then you strip it back. But yo, that sounds very good. Maybe just a little bit of saturation on it. This might be too much. Yeah, there it is. Let's gain stage just a little. And we can mix everything. Sounds pretty good. So now we have all these different elements here. It's time to arrange them into an actual track. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything. We're going to just cut it real quick. And we're going to paste it over here at bar 65. Cool. So now we have sort of like our color palette. You know, I think of it, I've talked about this in videos in the past, but I haven't talked about it in a while. I kind of think of it like painting, right? Like when you're doing a painting, you don't just take the paint and squirt it on your brush and just throw that at the canvas. It's like you put together a palette, you know, maybe mix up some colors, kind of get an idea for like where you want things to go, how you want things to feel, how you want the colors to make you feel. And then once you have that palette set up and in your hand, that's when you start painting. And that's how I think of this. It's kind of like we set up the palette now, you know, literally we have all these different colors here. Now we're going to put them together in a way that is going to make you feel something when you look at it. So what we're going to do, or listen to it, is we're going to take the kick, and I'm going to place it here. You know, what I usually do to start tracks is, like, just grab something and get it in there. I think that's really the best way because, you know, if you're sitting here, like, wondering, like, oh, should I start with this or try to do this? You're not really doing anything, and you're kind of just, like, you're not wasting time. I don't think any time that you spend producing or getting closer to being an amazing producer is wasted, but it's like, you know, you're just kind of like sitting there and you feel stuck. But if you just say, I'm just going to grab something and start with it, a lot of times that will spark a lot of ideas. We have this little percussion move happening with the kick too, which is nice. Alright, sounds pretty solid. So now we got that. We've got a little start here. I think I'm going to start with the kick a bit filtered too. Like we'll put a low pass on it. And we'll just have it kind of like coming up for that whole 16 bar intro. And I think I'm going to grab this synth. And this is going to start with it. We're gonna have it low pass throughout the intro here. Nice, and then we'll keep it going into here. Maybe we'll grab like this percussion now. And we can also have this start coming up more. As well as this is going to come in for real now. I'm going to start bringing in this little like pad too. We'll just use a low pass filter to bring that in. You can see like it's just everything coming in smoothly and slowly, and like nothing just hard cut, but everything kind of like filtering in, and it feels like the track is really growing and building this way, I think. Like I was saying. Alright, and that's just gonna go all the way through there. Maybe we'll actually have it kind of filter out. Let's copy that hi-hat automation too. And then this is where we'll have this synth start coming in. And these will just start building up. I'm also going to automate the auto pan, the amount to just kind of go down here on this sound. This way it's not being like filtered out. There's a little bit of feedback automation on the delay with this sound too. That's how you get those like big self-oscillating like. Nice. And then on this sound, let's do a bit of a high pass filter. And then I'm going to have it coming in with a low pass. So, you know, pretty standard stuff. We just get the low pass. And so we created this very like open space for the sound, you know? That's what you want to do, like give everything space to breathe. You don't want to do too much, too fast. Because otherwise it's going to be really hard for people to follow along. But cool, so now we're going to make another sort of like main, I don't want to say a drop, but you know what I'm talking about, the main part here. And then we'll grab the kick. And then I think I'm going to use these two synths here. Again, it's like a very fine line of like not doing too much while not having too little. Because I think just this on its own is going to be too little. But we don't want to have like everything here just yet. I like having this thing be a bit filtered too. Do another one of those feedback automations at the end here. Again, it's all about bringing it to life. here we'll bring back the strings. So I'll just copy that part with the automation. And we can just have this like... Maybe this one's gonna filter down a little. It's like all about giving everything that space. You don't need to have both at once. We'll do one more here. We get that coming back up. Okay, cool. So there we go. So now we have an arrangement. And you can see, like, really not that hard to make these arrangements. You know, a lot of times people get stuck with it. I think it helps if you understand how techno tracks work. Like, you know, you have to know, like, okay, you know, we start with the kick. Then maybe after 16 bars, that's when you start to bring in a little bit of percussion. Then at 32 bars, that's where, like, the main idea starts coming in. Then we have, like, bar 49 to 65, where it's really, like, the first part with a lot of energy. Then you got to drop the energy a little, and then there's a break, and then there's another main part. It's like, if you understand that, it's not really that hard to make a track like this, you know, and to arrange a track. Like, it doesn't really take that much effort, actually, to be honest. It's just a matter of, like, doing it strategically and making sure that every sound, you know, keeps going and sounds alive throughout the track. And the way that I achieve this is, as you can see, like, sort of working as I go. Like, when I'm doing automation, for example, I have everything playing. I'm not just, like, automating it, you know, to... just randomly, I'm like listening through like that while I'm sitting here tweaking the filters. Like, I make sure everything sounds great, and it's really gonna be a lot more fluid this way because you're really doing it based on just like the feeling and how it sounds, rather than like, oh, let me just sit here and draw in all these automation curves, and then it's like, yeah, you don't need to make it more complicated than it needs to be. Basically, is what all that goes to say. And then I'm gonna add something in this part here. This is where we add sort of like the little arrangement thing. So I have the snare. So I think I'm going to put like some reverb on that. And a bit of saturation. I will just put that in like here. Just to give it like something a little bit extra percussive on top of this. And I'll send it to that send. So yeah, just kind of like a little subtle element there. Let's automate the dry wet of this sound too. I'm just gonna have it like dip down and then come back. Yeah, nice. And then I'm gonna save this thing for a little bit after this comes in too. Nice. And then I want to make one more effect element too. Like, this may not really seem like the type of thing you would use in this style of a techno track, but I'm going to make a little sweep to just kind of go into this main part here. So what we'll do is we got operator. I made a long note, switch it to some white noise, put it through a bandpass filter. And then what we can do here is just have it go from the lowest point up to the highest point. And then it'll cut like that. So that's what separates this from like your standard sort of like, you know, EDM type of effect. It's just gonna be like a little subtle thing so that we get like a little just building into it. And then it stops. It's not doing more than it has to. Let's try sending that to the return as well. Yeah, sounds cool. Why not? Cool. And then we can put it through some reverb on its own. And I like to give these a little bit of chorus as well. If you turn that feedback up, you get that cool like metallic. And there you go. You know, just something to carry the energy along. So at this stage, I'm just going through and mixing everything a bit. I think I'm going to do this on my monitors as well because typically, you know, if you only make music, like if you only make your track on your headphones, you only know what it's going to sound like on your headphones. If you only make your track on your monitors, you only know what it's going to sound like on your monitors. If you make it on both, like maybe you start on headphones or you start on monitors, and then you go and mix it down and test it on both of those and maybe on multiple things other than that as well, you really know what it sounds like overall. So I'm going to just check this on the monitors and do a bit of mixing there, and then I'll come back. went through, you can see you kind of mixed everything, just got the levels right. I made sure everything had like the right level of punch and all that. Like this sound, for example, it needed a bit of drum bus or something. Like, you never want to just have like a super dry, clean sound. You need to have something on it to give it a little bit more fullness. So like the drum bus. And also just make sure like everything had the low end cut out like this, Because if you don't do that, it can actually clash with the kick. When we cut that, you can hear it fits nicely. I was just going through and making sure all the percussion was at the right level too. Like something that can happen a lot of times when you have percussion like this, it can get kind of buried. And yeah, you never want to just have something like quiet in your mix. You want to be able to hear everything at the same volume because that's how you get a really cohesive mix. Just going through, checking for that. I also checked for gain staging. So if you don't know what gain staging is, essentially like, you see how you can see, I'll show you like a sound that would be easy for me to show it to you on. So see how like on each of these, you can see where the output is hitting? And like if I turn the output up on this one, see how it's a little red there now? So what gain staging is basically just going through and making sure that that is all solid. And that they're not clipping at any point in the chain, because you can have certain things. It's actually happening a little bit here, I think. Where you see like a little bit of red there coming out. And that's just going to make your sound more muddy and more messy. And like, it's one of those things where you may not even be able to hear it so much on one sound, but if you do this across your overall mix, it's going to sound a lot smoother. And I think this mix does sound a lot smoother for this reason. Now, here at this stage, it doesn't really matter that much. On this one, I let it go because the saturator is really like, because we're already going to be saturating it after this stuff, it's like, it's already getting clipped. That's really just like about the input going into the saturator. But you notice like after it, I've kept it solid so that it's not clipping. And like if you have a project file where everything is turned down to like -20 or something like that, like you notice almost everything in here is, at a pretty good level. Like this one's pretty quiet, but it's because we want it to be quiet in the mix. If you have a project file where you have to turn everything way down though, it's probably because you're having issues with gain staging. Because like, the kick only needs to be at like -5. This only needs to be at like -5 because we have the gain right throughout the chain. So it's an important thing to think about. It's a little bit more advanced, but it's just about making your track the cleanest and smoothest it can possibly be. But cool. So now that we have the mix down sounding right and everything is good, I'm going to hit play, and we're going to test where this is hitting on the master. You can see this number here. So you see it's starting to get pretty loud. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything, and we're going to turn it all down a bit. And cool, now we're hitting about -5.3. So I try to hit between like -5 and -6 usually. So this should be pretty solid. Cool, and so now it's time for mastering. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get an EQ8. I'm going to do a low end boost and a high-end boost. And then we're going to turn the gain down a little. Again, all this gain staging stuff and just keeping it so that it's even volume throughout the chain. But here's without this. And then with it. So you can hear this just kind of focuses the track a little bit. It just brings out the low end a little bit more, brings out the high end a little bit more. I know a lot of mastering engineers who do this. And I think it's just a really good way of, again, focusing the track, because like in techno, your two loudest ranges are probably going to be the low end and the high end. You want the sharp highs and the deep lows, and you need that power and that sharpness. And so, yeah, it just kind of brings it out. From there, we're going to get a saturator. I'm going to bring the drive up to +4 and then put the output down -2. Here's without this. And then with it. You can hear a pretty big difference. It makes it a tiny bit louder, but really what you can hear is it's gluing everything together and it's kind of filling in those cracks. Like here's without it again. And then with it, like you hear like everything kind of coming together a little bit more. And I find this to be one of those things also, like if your track is sounding a bit gray and a bit dull, adding this on the master when you're mastering, I wouldn't do this like in the composition phase, but if you're at the part where we're at right now with this track, adding this on here can really make it like come to life, as you can hear. From there, we're going to get a compressor. I'm going to turn off makeup gain, and we're going to turn the threshold down a little. We don't want a whole lot. We're just going to compress it like right on the peaks. And then I'm going to also turn up the attack. Cool, so here's before the compression. And then with it. So you can hear it's a very transparent compression. Obviously with mastering, you wouldn't want something super in your face. But what it's doing is it's just kind of like evening out the volume levels of everything a little bit more, you know? Like notice the hi-hats, for example, that little the little 16th note hi-hat, you hear it a little bit more clearly with the compression. And yeah, so it's just taking everything and evening out the volume levels. And then when you turn up the attack, it just kind of moves the compression out of the way so that it's not messing up the transients on any of your sound. From there, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to get a limiter and we're going to turn the gain up. I'm going to turn the ceiling up. What we're going to do is we're going to turn this up so we hit 0 dB. Like now, we should be hitting it at 0, like right at 0. And then we're going to boost it a little bit, maybe to like there. Awesome. So this is giving our track that nice clean gain boost to bring the volume up so that we're hitting 0 dB, and then it's boosting it a little bit. So this might seem like a lot, 7 dB of gain, but it's one of those things, honestly, where I think it's just about getting it to the level of other tracks. Like, whenever I put tracks like this up against reference tracks, if you just put it up to here where it's hitting 0, even if it sounds technically cleaner, like, this just isn't going to hit as hard as any track in the style. But when you push it, I think that's what these guys are doing a lot. To really get their tracks to sound full and fat and like kind of glued together like this, and also just really loud, you know? Like, we just live in a time of very loud music. The loudness war is behind us. EDM happened already. It's like loud music is just kind of a thing. And so with techno, you know, you want to push it like this, and it's going to make it really hit as hard as professional tracks. Like, if you get this project file, which link is in the description, put a reference track in here, like a Blawan or an object track, and try putting it like this, where it's just a little push, and then like this, where it's all the way, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Like, you need that extra little bit of gain to really hit like the pros. Cool, so now we've done it. We've gone from a blank project file to a finished little track here. Let's listen to the full thing from start to finish. So there we are. We went from a blank project file to this nice little master track. That's me for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project file and samples, MIDI and presets. Everything that you just heard is right at the top of the description. Definitely go check that out. It's a great way to support me. And also, I want to let you guys know that I'm doing a little Black Friday weekend sale on custom tutorials, track finishing, and ghost production. So if you're interested in any of those, my email is in the description where you can hit me up for more info and to get one. Thank you so much, guys, and have a great day.